When people talk about visibility in fleet, I always want to ask, okay, but what does that actually look like in real life? How do you actually get visible? Because it's easy to think visibility just means being featured, being loud, or being the person everybody recognizes at a conference. But the voices you're about to hear from, they define it in a way that's a lot more real, and honestly, a lot more useful. I'm Lauren Fletcher. For this episode of Truck Chat's Shades of Fleet, we're going beyond Black History Month. We're talking leadership, mentorship, and visibility as an everyday thing, not a once-a-year conversation. We're digging into the stuff that happens in the real world and the moments that shape careers. So here's how I kicked things off. When you think about visibility in fleet, what does it actually look like in real life?
It's different whenever you're invited to the table and then if you're actually wanted at the table.
I wish more people understood that visibility isn't really delivering yourself and being the center of attention. It's about access and influence.
We joke about how nobody grows up talking about wanting to be in fleet.
We are here to do a service. We don't want to be looked at differently, that we're less than, or that we're not capable of doing the services that we promote.
Fleet moves people and moves goods, and that's what keeps this country rolling.
Okay, so here's what I'm hearing. When we say visibility, people typically picture spotlight stuff, getting quoted in articles or speaking on a panel where everybody claps, end of story. But that's not what we're talking about. This conversation revolves around trust. It's about being pulled into the real conversations and being taken seriously before you have to prove yourself 12 different ways.
It's different whenever you're invited to the table and then if you're actually wanted at the table. Does that make sense? If it's a lot of times we'll be invited to the table to be there and it's like, oh yeah, we have this person, they have a diverse culture and they're a cultural person and they bring all their ideas and who they are and they have a whole different perspective of how to see things and how things move and a whole different way of looking at life. And then when you get to the table, you realize that you're not really honored for being there. You're not really wanted there. It's you look good. It's just you're here now and that's really great. But that's not really what we want. Or you're here to look good and we'll listen to what you have to say. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're going to go ahead and do whatever we want and whatever we've always been doing because that's the way it works.
When I think about visibility in fleet, to me, it's not really about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being trusted. Over all of the years, that is one of the things that's really important. It's about being trusted with the numbers, right? Trusted with the strategy, trusted with the outcomes. Real visibility looks like being asked to lead revenue conversations, owning forecast. It looks like your perspective is shaping decisions, not just being present in the meeting, but being a decision maker at the table. And when you have a suggestion or when you have a statement that people are actually listening, that is visibility. Visibility means you have a voice and your voice matters. And that when you have a suggestion, an idea, that you're trusted and you're not just turned down. As a woman in fleet, I've learned that visibility often comes from consistency, from delivering results over and over and over again. And I wish more people understood that visibility isn't really delivering yourself and being the center of attention. It's about access and influence. It's about being in the rooms where the decisions are made. And it's about being taken seriously when you speak.
The visibility in the fleet and what we wish people would understand is that we are here to do a service. We are all about the driver's experience, to make sure that driver's experience is seamless and be successful at it. That's what we want people to know, is that we're like any other company, any other service. You want to give your best. So that's what we don't want to be looked at differently, that we're less than, or that we're not capable of doing the services that we promote. I think that's a good representation of what we, as a minority woman-owned business, those are one of the things that's one of our struggles, and that's one of the things that we don't want people to do is look down on us that we can't do what we said we can do, because we've proven that we can.
We joke about how nobody grows up talking about wanting to be in fleet, and a big part of that is the world doesn't know fleet. It doesn't know by that name. It really is a kind of an insider niche when it comes to the understanding or even the communication about this industry. I see the need for it to be visible in real life, because we all benefit from it. It is what moves the world. It is at the center of all things mobility, and there's just so much opportunity within really this conglomerate of industries that we call fleet or fleet management. I wish more people knew about it. And, therefore we really need to drive awareness of the real workings of it.
It's not just vehicles that we're managing. I mean, it's everything from fuel consumption, greenhouse gas reduction, the different type of fuel capacities, making sure that the vehicles that we're managing are safe and good for our drivers while they're out there servicing the citizens of whatever parish or whatever county that we're in.
And honestly, that kind of visibility, you can tell when it's real. It shows up in responsibility, not simply recognition. So I wanted to get out of the concept and into the moment. Tell about a time you felt truly seen, not just included, but supported and advocated for.
One of the moments that meant the most to me in my career, that would be when I was asked to step into a broader leadership role here at DECT during a really challenging time for the business. It wasn't just the responsibility, it was the support behind it from my CEO, right? It was one of those moments where it was, hey, we both agree that it doesn't have to be forever. And if it's not a great fit, I still trust you enough for this time being. And that means a lot, going kind of back to that trust. Leadership didn't quietly hand me that assignment. They made it clear they trusted me to lead. And that kind of visible sponsorship changes how a room responds to you. And it reinforces that you belong there. And for that short period of time, it really changed how I was able to interact in so many different spaces and in so many different rooms.
I had a boss named Scott Carver, white dude from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm from. We were working together, and I was invited to the table because I had a lot of vast experience in the area in which we were working, and I knew what I was doing. He knew what he was doing, and we worked in a way that it just worked. He allowed me to work the way that I do. He allowed me to be free. He allowed me to just do what I thought was best, even if it wasn't the way that he would do it, even if it didn't sound like or look like what he would have done. And I was able to be successful. And then he celebrated me in all of my accomplishments. He didn't try and beat me down. He didn't try and make himself look better. He didn't pat himself on the back like, oh, look at me, I hired Andre and he's doing great. And the only reason he's doing great is like, oh, I'm great because I knew that he should have been on the team. He didn't do any of that. He just ultimately rallied for me, celebrated me at all times, had my back at all times. And because of that, I had his back in one of the scariest moments of his life. Have his family's back, and took care of him in honestly something that could have been super devastating. And he's still one of my best friends to this day.
I know I'm probably one of 1,285 people who have the same narrative with the same person. But the first other black man that I met in the industry was Mr. Al Curtis. And he could have kept going up the escalator and pretended that I didn't exist. Or he could have circled back around because we were literally going up escalators in opposite directions. at Government Fleet Expo 10 plus years ago. And, but, in his authenticity, he, caught eye contact, made eye contact, spoke. And, within the next few minutes, we were chopping it up. And man, what has transpired ever since. And there have been many times that Al has, found me and, just poured something very encouraging into my ear, or even asked me questions. And I'm fortunate that he is in my daily orb right now. For any time I need to be seen, supported, or advocated, I know he's somebody I can call.
Being seen changes you. Once someone pulls you in, once someone backs you in a room, you don't show up the same way after that. It shapes how you lead. So this naturally led me to wonder, what's a leadership lesson Fleet taught you that didn't come from a job description? Because if you've been in this industry long enough, you know the real lessons don't show up in bullet points.
When I was first kind of like introduced to the fleet industry, I have over 30 years worth of experience in fleet, from military, private sector, and now I'm serving in public sector. There was a time when I was at one of the conferences and I met up with these three gentlemen, Keith Leach, Kelly Reagan, Richard Battersby, all of them from the West Coast, and here me coming from the South. And they really kind of shaped me into to taking part of these conferences and supported me in my journey on becoming an advocate for electrification and alternative fuels and so on, and bringing more people into the fleet industry that look like me. As when I first started in the fleet industry, there was not many directors, managers that attended many of the conferences. So I really made it a point and made something out of it to make it my charge to make people feel more welcome that didn't look like the average people that go to these conferences. Some leadership lessons that I kind of learned that has helped me was the gladiator leadership. Gladiator leadership to me is where you take and utilize the people that you have and utilize their best skills. We know that everybody can't do everything right, or not right, but do it at a certain level. I tend to want to take and utilize that person's skill set to the best beneficial for my department and for the county. I know if this person doesn't like to speak, I'd help them actually get out there and enhance that particular speaking capability. And from a gladiator perspective, from gladiators, you have tall, big, large, small. And I take and utilize those particular skill sets for a smaller gladiator. I would actually have them help out the larger ones by standing behind somebody and then have the bigger gladiator push them over. That's utilizing that person's skill and their size for the beneficial of us surviving in an arena setting. And it's shaped me to understand that everybody has value within an organization. And within an organization, you want to recognize what value they bring and look at where they come from. There's different ethnicities, different beliefs, and you take those and you understand those, and you work with those people to let them know that you appreciate what they bring to the table, and you value their opinions, you value their culture, you value what they believe in. As we recognize Black history, American history, Hispanic history, Asian American history, Hawaiian history, we make sure that everybody feels like they're valued and they mean something within an organization. And that's what gladiator leadership is all about. And that's what all leadership should be about. It should be about making sure your people feel like they're seen, that they're valued, that you trust them.
A leadership lesson I've learned in Fleet that never showed up in a job description is that culture drives revenue. Fleet is complex. Supply chain challenges, you guys have seen that many times. OEM relationships, upfit logistics, but clarity creates confidence. And I think that when people understand that expectations is how you win, that really changes how you perform. That has honestly shaped how I lead. I am big on structure. So I focus on structure. I focus on accountability and development so that people feel prepared, not just present. I do truly believe that preparation builds credibility and credibility builds staying power.
You can be right and still be wrong. Again, when you're invited to the table and you're invited because of your diversity and what you bring to the table and what you make the table look like once you're at the table, once you're there, honestly, you could be labeled like your directness is labeled as too intense. Your ideas in a way that, the way that you speak, has to shift because it can be intimidating to the people around you. That's why a lot of us change our voices whenever we're talking, because normally my voice is a lot deeper, and that's normally the way that I talk in my everyday life. But I've learned to lower my voice a little bit so that it makes everybody feel a little bit more comfortable. It makes everybody feel like I'm not yelling at them. So it's just one of the things you learn. You learn how to make people comfortable, make people, you learn to kind of put up a filter to get your point across and to say some things and to break down walls that other people have, because everyone's always going to have their own thought, their own opinion of the things that you say, the things that you do. And so if you put up a wall, it ends up blocking out things from both ends. But if you put up a filter, it changes the way that you portray yourself to the world in the way that things affect you, that come back your way. So I've just learned to filter, and I teach people around me how to filter as well, so that we can all grow and be better together.
I'm in this industry in a unique facet. I'm not a fleet manager. I'm not a technician. I'm not responsible for any daily operations when it comes to all things equipment and vehicles. I know enough to be dangerous. I could probably break some things if I were in those roles. But I really am a business development and now a community development leader. Man, so my job description, frankly, have been pretty dynamic and have really evolved over the decade plus that I've been in the industry. But man, first of all, regardless of anybody's best attempt, you cannot compartmentalize what's personal from what's business. Yes, boundaries can be developed, and they should be, but the world has changed, right? COVID dealt us a serious deck or a serious hand of cards that we all had to figure out how to play. But what happened, regardless of your circumstance, your geography, what kind of money you made, was, the world shifted. And, how we relate, how we communicate, how we do business changed. And all of a sudden, we're sitting right here like this, making exchanges like this to feed our families. And, there came, I think a more difficult time in separating business from personal and that work-life balance. And of course that ripples out to your teams and how they're managed, how you manage them, et cetera, but also just how people relate on an interpersonal level. And so who you surround yourself with has been honestly the hardest and toughest lesson and really has been a stack of lessons within that I have learned from being in director roles to starting Black Fleet Network. That has been a serious and again set of hard lessons, but the most rewarding as well, because it's only helped to refine through that that crucible of interactions and activity over the years. And, how it shaped how I show up for others, it has only made me want to be that much more present in mind, in eye contact, in being able to hear and listen to what someone else is saying, the story that they're sharing with me.
None of this gets learned in a vacuum, because here's the truth. This isn't the kind of leadership you pick up from a training module and a fancy title. Leadership doesn't just happen because a pathway exists. It happens because someone steps in. Someone teaches you the unwritten rules. Someone puts your name in a room you're not in. Someone takes a risk on you. And when I asked them who that person was for them, the answers came quickly.
The mentors who've sponsored me and who have impacted me the most were the ones who gave me access. They brought me into executive conversations and advocated for me publicly. And that is very important. Specifically, I think, in months like this, when we talk about Black History Month, when we talk about women in fleet, as we see the landscape of fleet changing, when people advocate for you publicly, those are the best mentors that you can have. There's a difference between advice, and I think there's a difference between advocacy. Advice helps you grow, and that's very important. Advocacy opens doors. The people who said my name in rooms when I wasn't there, that's who accelerated my career.
One of my meaningful mentors that I've had that really actually sparked me into this industry after joining the government space was Tom Johnson. Tom Johnson was the originator and also the person that started the 100 Best Fleet, recognizing fleet professionals on what we do on a day-to-day basis, pushing us up to let people know that we're valued, that we're important, that our job that we do helps this whole country, this whole world move forward. As you well know, fleet and transportation, fleet moves people and moves goods. And that's what keeps this country rolling. So Tom Johnson called me upon my, I think, second year within fleet, within Cobb County government, encouraged me to apply for the 100 Best. He mentored me. He took me out on speaking tours for 100 Best Fleet. He put me up there as front to have me speak on different 100 Best Fleet panels. And it really shaped and molded my career into fleet management, showing me that there is a place for people that look like me. There's a place for people that Black and brown and blue people to represent the fleet industry, because we do have value, and he saw that value in me and he pushed me up to the forefront and let me display that.
And one of the first that comes to mind is a man named Matt Guffey, works for UPS. He's Chief Global Strategy Officer over there in Atlanta for UPS. He's a friend of mine. And my wife was in his wedding. He helped move my career forward massively when it comes to the fleet world. He gave me an opportunity that other people wouldn't have given me, and walked me into a room that most people could have never walked me into. And he's just an amazing dude. I'll be forever grateful to him for that. There's other people like Zay over at Black Fleet Network. Another little dude named Hung, who's Gerber, one of those Gerber collision guys. That dude is super connected. And as soon as he found out what I do and what our company does, he pulled out his phone and was ready to connect me with anybody right there that very second to make sure that we can move forward. And that's the type of thing that I live for. And those are the type of people that you always want around you, the people that are going to really help you move forward and help you get to where you need to get.
There's a gentleman that I will name, Mr. Tim Fitzgerald, who many of you all know and has a storied career, but also he is a real man, and what I mean by that is, he has plenty of achievements and accolades and things to boast about. But he also has lived, plenty of disappointments and what some may call failures, but that he has certainly flipped into learnings that have only refined the level of wisdom that he leads his life with. And for him to share who he is and those lessons, and really even kind of creating a hedge of guardianship, or as we're saying here, mentorship for me. And he would deny this. He'd be like, no, I'm not Zay's mentor. Well, Tim, yes, you are. Sorry. Do I need to get you a T-shirt? I will. That says Zay's mentor. But yeah, man. If I call on Tim, say, Tim, I'm in Atlanta or wherever he is. Let's do lunch or dinner. He's gonna make it happen. And we're gonna both leave, hopefully, edified from each other's company.
An individual that has been instrumental in our beginning stages of the fleet industry is Zay. When we first met Zay, he is the one who introduced us to Al. So that is what started the ball rolling, and them being just real pivotal in making sure that we are seen and then we are heard, and people know that we're here to stay. We give great customer service. We have we offer great services for your clients to have a great vehicle, their driver experience to be top notch when they deal with J3.
I would definitely say Zay, whose official name is Xavius. But everybody in the fleet industry knows him as Zay. He definitely helped us in the beginning, introducing us to different people, different organizations, and then also being involved with BFN. Black Fleet Network has also helped us to meet other people that we may not have otherwise met without going to like BFN events and being involved with BFN. I'm on the board.
Yeah.
You're on the advisory board, so that we do help. That helps us, and it also helps us to give back by being on the board and advisory board. We can help those that are new to fleet or may need some help feeling that they're invited, and so that they're not feeling unheard or unseen.
And then also, we were able to meet the organizers of Hourglass. So we are a sponsor with Hourglass, and they're doing some really great scholarships in the industry, and just really opening up the doors of the visibility of all the aspects of what the fleet industry offers, because
it's a lot.
What I love about these answers is they're specific. Nobody's giving the generic, "they inspired me" line and leaving it there. It's real stuff. A phone call, a panel invite, a lunch, a name drop that turns into an actual opportunity. And once someone does that for you, you don't forget it, ever. So then the question becomes, what do you do with that? How do you keep the door open behind you? And I don't just mean a formal mentoring program. I mean the everyday stuff. Who do you pull into the conversation? Who do you make space for when it would be easier to just keep moving?
I think for us is being involved in these other organizations that help us to give back. We give back in our community locally, but then we also give back to the industry by being involved in Hourglass, being involved with Black Fleet Network, and being able to provide insights within that community to others to help bring up other people, as well as with trainings. We've partnered with our local high school, our local school system as well, with giving back with work-based learning. We bring on interns from high school to show them this side of this is a possible avenue for a lifelong career in fleet. Mm-hmm. And we also let them know that you don't have to stop here. You can keep going.
Right.
There's other careers in fleet that is can provide a very good living.
Yes.
As well as what we do here provides a very good living too.
Yes.
Succession planning, very important. I make sure that I have my team members attend me at conferences. They speak on the Cobb County government and fleet behalf. Through training, I mentor them. I show them things that they really thought they weren't capable of doing. Through mentorship and to putting them in uncomfortable spaces, help them grow. So when I get ready to retire, I know I have an arsenal of people that I've helped push to the next level in order for them to take over and make this fleet better than I'm going to leave it.
The way I keep the door open for other people is I'm always down to connect. I'm always down to connect people with companies or with anybody. If I know somebody, you know somebody. If I have a connection somewhere, you have a connection somewhere. There's no gatekeeping in life. I don't think that it's a thing. I believe that if you have the ability to help level someone up, you do it. I mean, I'm in some situations right now where we're moving some things forward and things started to get muddy and things started to get weird. And as we talk to people that are higher up in the chain, we want to make sure that we protect the people. Like, I'm making sure I protect the people that are down low. I don't want to make them look bad. I don't want to make them look like they're inferior. I don't want to make them look like they didn't do their job. I didn't want to make them feel like they are aloof. I will sing their praises and help them continue to grow.
For myself, I try to open the doors behind me in a very real way. My door is open even if you don't work for me anymore. And I think any employee that I've ever had, any person that I've ever worked for, they know that. I want people to feel like they can call me about career advice, life changes. How do I build a program from scratch? I say I call myself the fleet grandma, but literally, hey, I've had a baby. Here's your new grandchild. That is important to me. That to me is leadership. And I joke that I'm the fleet grandma, but that really means a lot to me. And if I have access to a room, I want to bring someone else in that room with me.
I created a door and I built a table for people whose voices, whose work, whose effort, whose achievements, whose tireless journeys to getting the degrees, the certifications, and thereby the job, who have been oppressed, who are suppressed, who have women who are incredible fleet decision makers and innovators in their own right, and in many cases the only one today right now having male supervisors screaming in their face when he disagrees with something, who get in the leadership seat, the director role, and all of a sudden are encountering all kind of just stupid challenges from others who haven't figured out how to manage their own insecurities, but also creating those platforms and stages for people to ally, to come alongside, to align, who truly have values that are valuable and are willing to share those with their fellow peer person and industry professional. That's what I do day in and day out. I never thought when the incarcerated convict who came to my middle school back in 1980 something, when I went down to meet him after the little session in the gym, and he looked me in my face and said, "You're going to be a preacher one day." I was going to be an architect is what I was thinking, but I did end up being a preacher, actually. And I ended up being an architect, meaning I'm somebody who designs and puts together community for the people.
Okay, so here's what I'm hearing now. A lot of people talk about leadership pipelines like it's some sort of mysterious thing leadership has to approve in a secret meeting somewhere. But what you just heard, that is the pipeline. Interns, succession planning, getting someone on a stage, making the introduction, no gatekeeping, actually protecting people while they're learning. So if individuals are already doing all that work, what needs to change at the industry level so it's not so hard to access leadership in the first place? If you could change one thing about how Fleet builds leadership and opportunity, what would it be and what would it unlock?
things in leadership that I'm finding is it's really easy to put somebody in a position and then tell them what they need to do and then holding them accountable for what you told them to do. Does that make sense? When you give somebody a position, you put them in a position, they inherit what's going on, they inherit the situation, and then they have to literally shift the steering on a huge ship. And then all of a sudden it's like, what job are you doing? You're not doing enough. It's like, hold on, I'm trying to steer an entire ship right here with a very tiny rudder, and you're holding me accountable for the decisions that somebody made before me, and I have to turn this whole thing around. That's the type of thing that I would change. And then it's like, oh, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. And then you do it that way. And then they go, oh, why did they do it that way? I don't know why they did it that way. And then nobody wants to step in and say, oh, no, I told them to do it that way. And then that person is taking the fault. I've seen it time and time again. I've seen it specifically with my cousin. He's dealing with that in his industry. That's what he's doing. And that's what he's dealing with. So that's the type of thing that I would shift. It's, you know what, if you're going to put people in a position, put them in a position and lift them up, help them grow, help them develop, help them get there, and protect them for a while. Give them a grace period. You know, that time in a video game where, you know, as soon as you respawn, you're impervious. For those first little bit, you kind of blink a little bit. That's the Super Nintendo thing. You blink a little bit, showing that you can't be hurt in that little moment. You know, a lot of these people need those moments. They need invincibility moments. They need, you know, Super Mario star moments where they're impervious and they can continue to move and they know that they're protected.
If I could change one thing about how the fleet industry builds leadership and pipelines, I would formalize sponsorship and earlier leadership exposure. We need more intentional pathways, especially for women, especially for people of color, for them to own budgets, to lead initiatives, and to take accountability for real outcomes, for advocacy to be heard, to be recognized. Opportunity shouldn't depend on proximity. It should, you know, be built with purpose. For me, that's a part of honoring the progress, to continue to expand what leadership looks like in fleet and making sure that the next generation sees themselves in it.
I think having more visibility of leadership training classes that are available. There's so much that's available there. I don't think there's one central location that you can go to see what classes are available.
And if there's like a leadership pathway for those that want to go into leadership, they have the fleet manager pathway, which has some leadership components. But what about those that truly want to be in a C-suite, or they want to be a supervisor, they want to be a manager? What are those trainings and opportunities for people that they want to continue moving up?
The only thing I would really change within the industry, I really can't change things in the industry, but I can start a process of change, is the pipeline of leaders. Making sure that I'm being really proactive in making sure my succession planning is up to par and our leadership pipelines are wide open. Looking at the best in people, not looking at some of their shortfalls and shortcomings. Utilizing their skills and enhance their ability to move up. And again, take over where I'm going to lead.
Open that pipeline. Open that pipeline. Politics have soured us. And I mean that politics in all caps. It doesn't matter if you're talking about government related or negative and ill-intended nepotism. It doesn't matter if you're talking about, the gatekeeping that happens within organizations. Politics is ruining lives, period. And I'm not making a political statement. I'm making a pro-person statement when I say that. And one of the biggest issues in that is that there are people who are standing in someone's way. Get out the way. We make zero progress as individuals and certainly collectively, hence the industry, or as an organization or as a community, if somebody is intent on just getting in the way for the sake of limiting someone. Get out the way. So creating those there's still so many pipelines and channels that need to be created. And there are those that are there, but somebody's, standing on one side of the door playing games to keep people from walking through that. But also back to, and thank you for these mentoring questions, mentor down, mentor across. Some opportunities we get to mentor up, but to prepare, that needs to be our new paradigm. That is the proper pipeline paradigm, is to develop in every direction and for all people. For all people. If you see that young Latino, that young Black man or woman, or somebody who's your same age, but they're hungry and they show up on time and they are exhibiting effort, pour into them the good stuff, and vice versa in every other direction. We got to stop limiting ourselves. If I limit you, I'm limiting me. And I'm limiting who knows how many others by being insecure, foolish, blind, any number of things that is keeping us from really growing. And that's what it would unlock, is an insane amount of growth on both the micro and the macro level, and that entire strip that connects the two. So let's truly be creative, because don't know if y'all realize this, that's the only direction that life goes, is forward. It don't go backward.
Fleet moves the world. So yeah, who gets to lead it matters. And after hearing all of this, I keep coming back to the same thing. Visibility isn't a spotlight. It's trust. It's access. It's who gets pulled into the real conversations, who gets backed up out loud, and who gets protected long enough to grow into the role instead of getting chewed up the second things get hard. And that's the part I don't want us to only talk about once a year. This episode, Looking Beyond Black History Month, isn't about a moment in time. It's about momentum. It's about keeping leadership, mentorship, and opportunity on the table all year, in every room and in every part of this industry. So if you're new here, hit subscribe, because we've got more stories to tell, more leaders to learn from, and more voices we need to keep hearing. And if you want more right now, go watch Shades of Fleet New Voices. That's where I kicked this whole thing off. The next episode focuses on women driving change. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next month.